Welcome to another edition of the Dimecast podcast. I'm Beto Duran alongside the one and only, the reason we have this podcast, Danny Hernandez. All right, Danny, we've been going through a few episodes. Now you feel more comfortable?
I do feel more comfortable.
Yeah?
Yes, I do.
Do you know what you're talking about?
A little bit. Yeah, I think so.
And of course, rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff. We have a Twitter account. We have an Instagram. We have the YouTube page. Everybody out there, spread the word. Let them know. And if you've been watching since the first one, you've noticed that every single episode we have a theme, right? Eventually, we're going to start talking to the players and doing the interviews. But the reason we've been having these shorter versions is because we want to educate the listener, the viewer, or the new parent to football world what it is like, where everything's all about. So go back and watch episode 1, 2, 3, all those other stuff. So it's been good. The reaction around the country has been interesting for you, right?
Yeah, it's been great feedback. Been hearing a lot of people say, man, these are some questions that I've had, didn't know how to ask them, didn't know where I could get answers. So it's been pretty cool to get that feedback.
All right, so we've heard from people in Japan, our guy.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
We've heard from coaches across the country who said, hey, I want to come on.
Yes.
And coaches, we will be getting you on when you come to LA.
Yes.
When you come to Pico Rivera, where Danny is from right here. This is we're at a park in Pico Rivera where Danny is going to be training a couple of guys pretty soon.
Yes.
You go all over Southern California. And what I'm noticing, Danny, and today's topic is something that's very interesting because it's very important. We talk about some good topics, but today is an interesting one for me because I have no idea what the process is going to be. So I'm going to ask some questions that might sound stupid, so don't just bear with me a little bit. The term holdback.
Yes.
Right? It's big in all sports. My son played basketball, so I learned that where I'm asking him like, oh, that's your friend. He's in your grade? No, he's 2 years. He's a year older than me, but he's 2 grades younger than me. Like, What is a holdback and what is going on?
Again, a little controversial topic, but I think, like you said, you see it in all sports, and really what that is normally what you'll see in the holdback year will be a kid doing 8th grade twice. It's normally what it is for whatever reasons. It might be someone holding back, and repeating 8th grade, not because they had bad grades or anything.
Well, because when we were kids, it's like, oh, you flunked, fool.
Exactly.
You're dumb.
Exactly.
But now it's a business decision.
Exactly. It's a business decision. And I think a lot of times in the process, when these kids end up doing that, they end up moving on to a different school, academy. Some of them are homeschooled. There's different ways that they could go about that process.
Okay, so a holdback is somebody who, before they start high school, they do 8th grade twice.
Correct.
Why would you do that if you're a parent?
I think a big part why parents end up doing that is, you're trying to gain an advantage, and I think part of the whole process with the whole thing is just trying to figure out, what are my strengths and weaknesses, as a player. Maybe the kid needs to get a little bit bigger, maybe needs to get a little bit stronger. Sometimes it's just confidence, maybe they just need to get a little bit more confidence. So if you could put yourself in that position, what I try to tell the kids and parents, know where they're at age-wise, right? Like I don't want to see, especially for the quarterback position, I hate to see a kid graduate high school and he's 17 years old, because now think about these guys are graduating in December and they're already enrolled doing spring ball at the college that they're at, and to be 17 years old, like that's pretty young, So I try to tell the kids to at least put themselves in a position where they're 18 at that point. And some guys put themselves in a position where they're 18, sometimes 19.
It used to be taboo where like everybody's like, oh, he's a holdback.
Yes.
Now it's business.
It's
and it's a common knowledge where, and obviously this podcast is specific for quarterbacks, but more than likely, the majority of your quarterbacks are going to be somebody who's done 8th grade twice because your birthday has to be a certain way. Like, how does that work? What is it? You look at the day, you just said something about the birthday. What does that mean?
Yeah, there's an actual cutoff date, and I apologize for not having that info, but I know you can't end up being a certain age at a certain time in the year. Like you can't turn, say, for example, you're going into your senior year. You could turn 19 in your senior year, but you can't be 19. I think it's like a date in July or something like that. So they could turn 19 during the season, but it can't happen, that whatever that little cutoff date is.
That's crazy because you said turning 19 in your senior year.
Yeah.
And you said something about 17. I graduated high school when I was 17.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was around that age.
Yeah.
But now, again, it's the business side. So when a parent is talking to you and you're training their son and they say, Danny, I thinking about holding back. Like, obviously, you're not going to go and say, hey, this kid should, because it's a parent's decision.
Mm-hmm.
But what comes into that? Like, this is fascinating to me because like when my son was in 8th grade and I heard the term, "Oh, we're gonna hold him back, we're gonna hold him back." I'm like, dude, I want my kid out of here. I
Yeah.
want him in college. But again,
Yeah.
I didn't have a Division I athlete because it's different because
Yes.
you're taking a big gamble.
Oh, yeah.
that your son is going to be a college quarterback because those 4 years of high school, what if he doesn't like football anymore? What if he stops that? Like, or what if he doesn't develop or anything
Yeah.
like that? Next thing you know, you have a 19-year-old dude in high school who doesn't care.
Yeah. And I think, again, you have to have that self-awareness and know what your kids' goals and dreams are and what your kids' goals and dreams are, because sometimes you'll get situations where you'll get some of these parents and, oh, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. Well, is your kid on board with that? Do they really want to do that? You know what I mean? Because like I had that situation, I mean, I was coaching youth ball, when my son was in school, and I said, hey, a lot of these guys are holding back. Do you want to do that? And he's like, heck no, I don't want to do that. And I was like, cool. That was the end of discussion.
Okay.
We never got brought up again, because that's not something that he wanted to do. Now, again, he was in a different situation where he wasn't looking at it like, wow, man, if I end up holding back, maybe I grow 3 inches in 9th grade. Because you see a lot of that stuff. If you see that kid that might be a little bit of a late bloomer, dad's around 6'3", mom's about 5'10", you have a pretty good idea that kid's probably going to grow. And if he's about 5'7", in that first 8th grade year, maybe you do hold back. Guess what? Now he's 5'10", going in the next year.
Right,
a little bit
so
different.
We made the decision we're gonna hold back, right?
Yeah.
What do I do with my kid? Does he go to his same junior high?
No,
Or what happens?
That can't happen for several reasons. One, like you said earlier, oh man, did he flunk out?
Yeah.
Why is he here again? And so you definitely can't do that. And most of the schools aren't going to allow you to do that anyway.
So what do I do?
So there's different things. Like some of these guys there's a lot of academies that have popped up, all throughout. I know in Southern California, there's a good amount of them. So a lot of these kids will go there, and it basically it kind of takes a little bit of that IMG model, so they're doing, strength and conditioning. They're doing, whatever, if it's like, sports IQ stuff, obviously working on their agility, whatever it is.
But are they going to school?
They are going to school. Yeah. A lot of these guys, they are going to school. So there's it's worked out where they're going to school. I always joke with them, like, man, back in my day, we had to go to real school, like that, I always tell the guys, but it's kind of where we're at now, it's like, and these guys do that. The other route that I've had guys do in the past is, they get homeschooled, during that 8th grade year. Obviously when you're homeschooled in that position, you have a little bit more flexibility. And that's been a time where some of the kids that have decided to go that route, have really leveled up in that time. I mean, they've gotten bigger, stronger, cleaned up certain things mechanically. We're hoping that they mature in a lot of ways too, and they're a lot more confident. So that's been a big part that they've been able to do.
But Danny, I'm a college coach. I'm looking at it. How do these kids go to school? How do those credits work? Because your goal as a trainer is when your kid gets to high school, you want him to graduate early.
Yes.
So are those 8th grade classes that help him, or what is it?
In some cases, depending on what classes that they're taking, okay. Some of these guys too, in that holdback year, they're taking classes sometimes at the local junior college. So sometimes
that's what you recommend.
Yeah, they'll have that. Sometimes they'll have maybe like some Spanish credits done already, or whatever the case is. So there's certain guys that have done stuff like that. Put themselves in that position. But it varies. You have a couple different options for that.
Because it sounds almost, again, I'm asking the naive questions. It sounds almost like a prep year,
yeah,
but for junior high.
Without a doubt. It really is. It's a prep year, and you're hoping that if you end up going into that quote unquote prep year, you're setting some goals, right? And what are those goals? Those goals could be, hey, we're hoping that, he could put on, I don't know, 8 pounds, of muscle, maybe in this time. We're hoping that, maybe a kid is, and this goes for all sports, right? Maybe it's that quarterback that's throwing and he's pulling his head a little bit to the side. Maybe it's that, basketball player that's not very good going to his left, whatever it is, all these kind of things. Like, use that time to really level up. And that's what you're hoping could end up happening.
So the most important thing is you better work your butt off.
Oh, without a doubt. Otherwise it's a waste of time. What are you doing? Go get to school. And, and it's funny because the pros and cons that end up coming with this whole thing. And I still remember having it with one of my kids, and the dad ended up saying, hey man, you better be an absolute dude, and you better end up getting a lot of these offers. Otherwise you're just the old guy at school. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah. It's like, otherwise you're just the old guy, it's like, and nobody wants that.
Like Days of Confused, man.
Without a doubt. You're not looking for that. So again,
yeah.
I think it's that self-awareness and kind of understanding, what your kid's options are. Does he have, some opportunities here? You're trying to set them up and put them in the best position possible. And you should have a good understanding what they've done in that, sixth, seventh, and that first eighth grade year to say, okay, I think we're on the right path here.
So that year when you're holding back, right? It used to be a stigma, not anymore.
Not
Because
anymore.
so do you work with kids that are hold back in eighth grade, and you put them through like the routines during the year or
Yeah.
that year?
Yeah. And the kids that I have, that are going, that are holding back in their eighth grade year, again, normally there's a lot of flexibility within their schedule. If they're at some of these academies, a lot of these academies are giving them Friday off. They're going to school Monday through Thursday and Friday's off. So Friday is like a big day for me to work with a lot of my kids that are either at an academy, homeschooled, whatever the case is. That schedule is a little bit more flexible. And the other thing that you got to think about here, with a lot of these guys doing these online schools and all these other things going on, it's totally normal now because of COVID and everything that ended up happening. So once that year ended up happening, we were already doing stuff where they were basically homeschooled, where they were doing stuff online. So I think it's becoming so much more normal because of 2020.
All right, I'm always going to go back to the money part because it's just ridiculous how crazy it is right now. So if I'm a parent and I'm going to hold back the kid, that eighth grade year is going to be an expensive year because you have to pay for an academy.
Yes.
Right. And then you got to pay for the strength and conditioning coach.
Yes.
You got to pay for the team dimes workouts.
Mm-hmm.
You have to pay for these camps you're going everywhere. So it's no because if you're in just normal junior high, it's like, oh, okay, we'll play on weekends.
Yeah.
It's an investment.
Oh, it is an investment. And you gotta, you gotta make that commitment, it's like, and it's not always easy, and it's a sacrifice. And that's the thing that I'm constantly reminding these kids, guys, there's somebody that absolutely believes in your skill set and who you are and everything to put you in this position. Be extremely appreciative because this was not the norm years ago. It was not, this is where we're at now. And I think because you see so many other guys doing it, these kids, I have to remind them that hey, this is special that you're getting a chance to do this.
Do college coaches ask you, is he a holdback?
Yeah, there'll be times, they'll ask like, hey, what's his age? There was a camp that I had, ended up going to a camp at a college, and the coach ended up having I had a really good, talented group of incoming freshmen. And he asked every guy, how old they were, and it was funny when you had the guy that's a little bit older and it's like, oh, okay. And he goes, hey, don't worry. My dad did the same thing with me. So it's just kind of like a thing. I think that's happened. I think you see it in all positions now. I think in the quarterback world, it's a kind of a must, to be honest with you, and again, you're asking someone to be leader of men, right? So it's like, how can I be leader of men going into a college and I'm 17 years old? Don't get me wrong. There's going to be people listening to this and maybe it'd be a quarterback, well, I did it, I did it back in, it's like, yeah, maybe you did. And there's going to be a few that are able to do that. But I've probably seen more situations where those guys, they would have benefited from just one more year to get there just a little bit later.
Well, in the NFL, right? Is it kid from Carolina, Jake Maier? Is he like 20, right?
Yes.
And then you have a Caleb who is 22, 23. Mm-hmm. And everybody's different and different maturity levels. But you're right. The maturity level is so different when you go from high school to college.
Yes.
You got to handle yourself. And now, because of the holdbacks and the different birthdays, you're going to college as a 20-year-old freshman sometimes.
Yeah.
Right? You turn 20 in your freshman year.
Yeah, there's some of these guys that are doing that. And again, it's not always for every parent. I still remember Malik Murphy, the quarterback that I ended up working with since the 4th grade. And Malik's in his 8th grade year. And I ended up, we're talking about figuring, he had a good idea what high school he was going to go to, and talking to mom and said, hey, is the holdback an option for him? And the thing was, Malik was a young guy on where he was. He was that guy that ended up graduating at 17 years old. And
he was also 6'5".
Well, that was
230.
And that was the thing. She's like, I feel like my son's going to look ridiculous doing 8th grade again. He was already at that time in the 8th grade, at least 6'3", pushing 6'4", so she's like, he's going to look ridiculous doing 8th grade again. Now, again, from a physical standpoint, he absolutely did not need that. Now, we go back and we look at things, from a maturity standpoint, could it have helped a little bit more? Maybe, I mean, it's all worked out for him.
But he didn't want it.
He didn't want to. Mom definitely didn't. Mom and dad both agreed they didn't want it. And it was like, hey, this is going to be your path. That's fine.
So I remember, speaking of Malik, he went to Sarah High in Gardena.
Yep.
So there was a quarterback before him who went to Arizona. I believe his last name was Tate. Who they kept making a big deal. I'm watching a game of Pac-12 Network. 17-year-old freshman quarterback.
Yes.
That was before the holdback was really a big thing.
Yeah.
He graduated college at 20. Everybody has their own path.
Everybody has their own path. It's like I have another kid, by the name of Walker Eget, and Walker had two older brothers that both played quarterback. Now I ended up starting to work with Walker in the ninth grade. Chubby, short freshman. Okay. Like you looked at him as a ninth grader and you definitely did not see Division I quarterback at that time.
Wow.
Now, had I worked with him in the eighth grade, I would have 1000%, because of where his age was, 1000% had at least recommended, hey, you may want to end up holding back. You're not even going to be the old guy at 19. You're going to be kind of the normal age at 18, so he doesn't get held back, ends up growing. He turns out to be that 5'7" chubby freshman and ends up graduating his senior year, I believe at 6'3", slim and trim. He's at on scholarship at San Jose now, but he got there. He's playing in a game his freshman year, his true freshman year, at 17 years old. Like that's tough, to do.
And for everybody saying, well, I did this, the game has changed.
The game has changed.
It's completely changed.
Yes.
Over the last 5 years.
100%.
Because I saw this growth in my son. Like, say he's a college freshman. He came back and like a couple weeks ago, and I looked at him. I'm like, dude, you look so much different.
Yes.
And he's 19,
yes.
and he has his friends who
Yep.
were held back,
yes.
who are older than him,
yes.
but they're still in high school.
Yes.
I'm like, if this kid, my son, goes to college, he gains 10 pounds, gets a little bit taller. Like, if he would have been a high school senior this year, maybe he is at a smaller D1 instead of at a D3. Like, but then again, I was like, the dad academic, like, you got to know what your kid is.
Totally.
You got to know what he is. Like,
no, totally. And it's funny. I always joke with the kids, when they say, "Oh, my parents put me in school really early," or whatever the kids. "Oh, you must have been a bad kid. They wanted to get you out of the house and get you in school already."
It was like, no, we signed him up for preschool. Yeah. He's 3. Now it's like, no, preschool at 7.
Yes. Let's slow it down a little bit here. And again, I think this is a topic that, again, I know we're very QB specific here on what we're talking about, but this goes for all sports. It's like, it's funny. I had this conversation, the other day with my comadre, and we're talking about, her son's a baseball player, and she's like, I got some decisions to make here, because on one end, you're kind of like, I don't know if this sits well with me. Like, in the back of your mind, you almost feel like, am I cheating? But the reality is you're not, because this is the game. It's like that's what that's what's going on. So and the other thing too that you got to understand too is everything. And this is speaking from a football standpoint. Everything is happening at least a year earlier than everything, and what I mean by that is before it used to be your senior film really, really mattered. Now it's like I take a look at most of the 2025 kids that I have, they haven't even had their senior year yet, and they're all committed, to schools already. You know what I'm saying? So it's like everything's happening sooner. So why put yourself in a position where you're playing catch up the entire time? You have to come out the gate, swinging. You know what I mean?
It's crazy because you mentioned the holdbacks, right? And you come out of baseball. So my friends that are baseball scouts always ask how old you are.
Yes.
They never ask the age because the college coaches will take them. The pro scouts, they want you younger.
They want you younger, correct?
Which is crazy. So it's like, oh, he's a holdback. He's not. We really don't want to draft him.
Yeah,
that's a whole different conversation. I don't know.
Well, they're gonna break down the analytics of when a player peaks at what age and all that kind of stuff. Yes.
So for football though, it's different world.
Different world.
All right. So now we said it used to be. I was so naive when I was younger because I was thinking, man, all these kids in the Orange County, they're so smart. They graduate high school in 3.5 years. Now I learned because they were being held back and everything else. I'm like, oh man, because when I used to cover USC, like, man, these Orange County quarterbacks, bro, they sound so smart and mature. Then you realize this was 20 years old.
Yeah.
They would never tell you their age.
Yeah.
But the holdback role. There's also a little stigma of like, okay, you're that old dude. There's a character out there or a quarterback who's been committed for the last 15 years. His name is Spencer Holdbach.
Ultimate eighth grader right there.
That
Ultimate
guy,
eighth grader.
He's an eighth grader that drives the workouts.
Yeah, he's the real deal, man. That guy, like, make sure you guys follow him on his social media because that guy, he's gonna teach you the way. He's a serious player.
Spencer Holdbach shows up with the blades.
Yep.
Shows up with the neon, a bunch of gear.
Oh yeah.
You're making fun of it, but at the same time, there are dudes like that.
And there are. We go to the camps, we end up seeing it. It's like, he's got the whole QB fit on, right? He's over there with the exaggerated goggles on and the Bass Pro Shop hat and, whatever it is. He's going to have the backpack with, 42 lanyards, from all the different places that he's visited, and he's going to have all that. So we're poking fun, at it. But again, that's our world that we're in. It's been pretty cool. The funny part is the college coaches end up seeing that stuff, and they're always messaging me like, when are you going to do another Spencer Holdbach video, man? Because that stuff's hilarious.
Well, we got the whole production crew now. So
There you go.
The Spencer Holdbach episode might be coming.
Might be coming.
But Spencer only shows up if there's a bag.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
You better have some kind of sponsorship available.
He's on that level.
Municipal, you better start sending Spencer whatever he needs.
Step it up.
That's everybody.
Step it up. Step it up.
All right. So at the end of the day, here's what I learned. If your kid is a stud, start kindergarten when he's 10. Right?
I don't know about all that.
9.
Yeah. No, I don't know about all that.
Okay, stupid question. Is there like people delaying their kids in kindergarten because
I'm sure. I'm sure. And it's just putting and I don't even think it's necessarily fully sports related. I think it's just understanding the maturity of your kid and putting your kid in a position where he's just a little bit more, mature. I go back to my daughter, and my daughter wasn't an athlete, but she was somewhere we put her in probably a little early. I think she was a little immature when we got her into high school, and she says it, she's like, I'm going to do it different with my daughter. Yeah. Now, yes, I am a grandpa. Do it with my daughter. Okay. Yeah. And just to put her in a position, again, it has nothing to do with sports, just being a little bit more mature when you get there.
But yeah, I'm not having any more kids, but if I do, that kid's not starting school till forget TK.
There you go.
We're gonna homeschool. We're doing it. Oh man,
get it
messed up.
Do it right.
I met you too late.
Do it right. Do it right.
I need a kicker in my life.
There you go.
Danny Hernandez, your social media, what is it?
Danny H131 on Instagram, Coach Danny 10 on Twitter.
All right. We always do this. Random QB that you've worked out with at a different school. Give me one. Oh. We have Japan. We had your guy in Canada, which, by the way, Jake Maier got me drinks in Vegas for the Canelo fight weekend.
Okay.
I was at the lobby bar talking to some people, and they're
Did a quick little name drop?
Oh, I absolutely.
Oh, as you should.
We're like, where are you guys from? Oh, we're from Canada. I was like, I love Canada.
Yeah.
They're like, no, we're from like Calgary, Alberta. And I'm like, the Stampeders?
Yeah.
They're like, how do you know that? I'm like, Jake Maier. Shout out Jake Maier. You're going to give me drinks from Canadian cowboys that were in Vegas who were like, so is there boxing going on? And we're like, they were there for some kind of country concert. But Jake Maier, shout out to you. Getting me drinks.
I love
That's
it.
the random name.
Good stuff. Today. Good stuff. Love it.
For Danny Hernandez, I'm Beto Duran. Thanks for watching Dimecast Podcast.